Good morning on this Sunday, September 22nd, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. So, you want to be a U.S. Senator? Online applications are open. The first round of testing from Cobb County is in around the Sterigenics plant, and the winners and losers in the Georgia 400 project. Theron, Phil, Janelle, and Alexis are all here. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
It's an open casting call for U.S. Senate. This week, Governor Brian Kemp called for anyone interested in replacing the retiring U.S. Senator Johnny Isakson to apply online. Theron, I really like how former Senator Josh McCoon referred to this. It's like the wildest contest since the golden ticket in the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory contest.
Well, it's definitely untraditional, but you know, when you see people like Congressman Doug Collins, who we know has been rumored to be one of the Republicans that are being strongly considered by, we hear maybe the governor's office and some of his colleagues. I mean, if he can go ahead and apply, I think I would say a little word of advice for folks who think that this governor may be considering them. You need to go ahead and apply. Now, I think that the thing that was really interesting about this move is that I think it was more about public trust, because, you know, this governor during the campaign and even since he's been governor has really seen a lot of people from the media and the community to demand transparency. Now, if you're really strongly considering running for U.S. Senate and you go and send your application or your bio, your employer may have a little concern about that. But at the end of the day, while it's untraditional, I think that this governor wanted to make sure that a lot of the emails and calls that he probably were getting, he said, look, this is a process that we put in place. And look, Laura, we got to be careful what we ask for. We've been calling on this governor to tell us what he's going to do, tell us how he's going to do it. So after a hurricane and a turnover ship and some other stuff with Sterigenics, he's come forward with a process that many folks are going to have to go and apply if they want to be a U.S. Senator.
And Phil, you know, if Governor Kemp wanted to go unconventional, this is one way to do it. But doesn't this put some of the candidates in kind of a tough situation?
It does. I have mixed feelings on this too, and it seemed like a good idea, I think, at first blush. But let me give you a quick political example, because obviously this is going to be on the ballot in November 2020, and he's got to appoint somebody for viewers who are just kind of figuring out this process. And then you've got to run with President Trump on the Republican team and Georgia Senator David Perdue on the Republican team. He's on the other ballot for Senate. And so let's take a quick example like Paul Brown, a former congressman. He's a constitutionalist on the hard right of the party spectrum. He, I saw, applied. That's fine. However, and I think he would support whoever the appointee was, but a lot of his supporters might be angry and said, my guy didn't get it, I'm not voting. You see, there's political pitfalls here too, and do you want to out some of these people, and then do you want to waste time interviewing you know, the janitor from a high
What's
school?
wrong with janitors applying to be U.S. Senator?
But
that's what I'm talking
it's a wasted time.
If a janitor, he or she wants to be a U.S. Senator, they should apply.
And you know, I guess everybody can do it and have thousands of applications.
This is open government.
The election decides in the end who's going to be the senator. And so I just think a lot of this is, I hope you get to sift through hundreds of these, you know?
Well, you know, look.
That comment. I mean, this is the U.S. Senate. It's like the equivalent of the House of Lords. Does this cheapen the office?
Look, listen, I said it was untraditional, and I don't have mixed feelings about it. Look, I'm going to support whatever process the governor has put in place. But to agree with Phil, I do think, listen, this governor, again, we got to be careful what we ask for. We've been saying for weeks, who's he going to pick? I've said on this show many times that he should pick a minority Republican. There are a few of them in the state.
Have any applied yet?
There
are way more than a few minority Republicans.
Have any applied yet?
And then I don't know if any applied. And so
a number have applied.
I don't think it cheapens it. Now, had Doug Collins and not former congressmen and others applied, then you could say, okay, these folks are not following the process that the governor's laid out. And the thing that I was happy to hear the governor say is that he's going to pick someone who has applied through this site. And then there's no end date on the site just of yet. So people can start applying all the way in the next 3 or 4 months.
Can call the people they want to.
But Janelle, let me ask you this, because what if there are people who are currently in office who want to apply, and what if there are people who are running for office, a different office obviously, who want to apply? I mean, where does that put them?
Yeah, it does put them in a really tough position, but I have to agree with Theron on this one, that I do think it is about public transparency. I think the governor is really open and wants the people to know that he's going to choose choose the best person, and we all should see, who wants to be in the race. So, I mean, this is probably the one time I agree with Theron on this show, but so I'll give this to Theron. This
I'm
one,
honored.
Theron.
I'm so honored.
Okay, well, I will disagree with Theron. I think it's all about the show. I mean, come on.
We're agreeing.
What is happening?
I agree with Phil. It's all about the show.
Oh my goodness.
Well, we are fair and balanced today.
We really are. What a way to start.
You want to read some of these resumes, Theron?
No, listen, again, I think that now one of the things that this could also do is that, and I don't want to accuse the governor of illegally or kind of unintentionally retaining data, but there are probably going to be some folks that apply for this U.S. Senate job that, quite frankly, are not going to be qualified. But this is also a government where you need talented people, and they may see some resumes that say, you know what, maybe not fit to be U.S. Senate, but maybe you can go work for the EPD, or maybe you can go work in the Department of Community Affairs, or maybe you can, work for the GBI. I mean, I think that this is a way for people to really kind of get involved and then open up state government a little bit.
To that point, I totally agree, and I think I
Two times
personally,
today.
since I know, so since it is open to public records and open records, I think we should go through there and see who we can possibly run for other races.
Well, I am going to get to Alexis on the Democratic side, because we did see that Lucy McBath said no, that she'll take a pass. And the Republicans really jumped on this, saying, Stacey Abrams, now Lucy McBath, and Democrats are really striking out on their picks for U.S. Senate.
Well, that's their assessment and their opinion, but I think she's decided that she needs to stick with her congressional district and win that race, which is a good thing because it's an important race too, important seat for her to hold. So I just disagree with it. I mean, I think she's focused very much. She's gotten her gun control legislation passed in the House that she was so trying to do. So I think she's going to be all right. And there are a lot of good people who are running anyway. You've got Tracy Tomlinson from Columbus, the former
That's in the
mayor,
David Perdue race.
In the Perdue race. Yeah, nobody's going to say
Ted
anything.
Terry, Sarah Riggs Amico, and
Well,
John
no one's
Ossoff.
going to say anything about the Isaacson position right now until they.
But Phil, a lot of folks are probably in the 6th were hoping that Lucy McBath would have jumped into the Senate race.
Well, I think that's a very flippable seat for the Republicans, and I think that it's a great failure for Senator Chuck Schumer. He's trying to recruit a top candidate. They've been having meetings there, and you know this, and they're not happy with who they've got already. And so the fact that McBath told Senator Schumer, no way, I don't think the Democrats can win statewide.
Let me say this about Congresswoman Lucy McBath. One of the things that got overshadowed, and no, not against Stacey Abrams, because a lot of us was focused on the governor's race, but we had a big win in Georgia. I mean, and so for her to upset an incumbent member of Congress, Karen Handel, was a big deal. And so I think that she was strongly being considered. My sources tell me that, this was something that was brought to her. Senator Schumer and others from the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee really courted her very heavily. I think what it boiled down to is that she pulled this upset victory. Let's not undermine her victory last year. And I think that she's focusing on these constituents. And so I think she did the honorable thing by saying, hey, look, I'm going to continue to serve my citizens. And look, she's passed a gun control bill, gun safety bill in the House. I think she wants to see that through. And so I think it was a good decision for her. And look, stay tuned. There's going to be some people that are going to jump in this Isaacson race. We just got to make sure that they go through the process, make sure they can understand. But and hopefully, they got to go and apply. So. But on the Democratic side, you will have some qualified Democrats that will run for the open Isaacson seat.
Will there be an application process on the Democratic side?
I don't like to get in ahead of the governor and Nakima Williams, who's the state chair, but I will hope that they would work together to figure out how they can make it a smooth process.
All right, well, coming up, we're going to talk about Sarah Jennings and also the Atlanta School Board and Maria Karstafen. Don't go away.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
We're going to talk about Atlanta Public Schools, where both candidates in the upcoming school board runoff say it's time to move on with a decision not to renew Superintendent Maria Karstafen's contract, and that's looking more and more likely, Phil.
Well, yes, and of course this has been the big controversy throughout Atlanta, as we discussed on the show last week. You had the chairman of the Atlanta School Board, Jason Estevez, talking about how great she was back in June, and then all of a sudden, we knew there were problems with the board and with the superintendent, but then all of a sudden we get this, and as a lot of people are talking about, there never was a very good explanation as to what exactly happened.
I don't think it was all of a sudden, though, because they voted voted last summer not to extend the contract. So they just announced it just now. So, and I also think that there were some issues, and probably a good example or a microcosm of what's going on is this runoff of the Atlanta School Board right now in District 2. Charter versus public schools.
That's a big issue in that race.
And the one for charter schools got the most votes.
Yes, but the other one got enough to get in the runoff, so nobody got 50%. So there you go.
But
and there were 9 candidates
because in a message that U.S. Attorney B.J. Pack says was meant to be private, well, he implied that City Hall may have had a hand in this decision. So you're close with Mayor Bottoms. What's her opinion of Maria Carr-Starfed, and how much did she play a role in any of this decision?
So I want
the
to
Atlanta School Board and the mayor's office are completely separate.
Correct, and you're exactly right on that. But I think the 2 people who are in the runoff for District 2 are Aretta Baldwin and Davita Huntley.
Yes.
And so both of these 2 individuals, these women, come forward and said, look, we need to move on. And so I think that was a big win for the chair of the board, Jason Estevez, and them saying, hey, our vote basically is sustained and we're going to move forward. What I really want to say about this Maria Carr-Starfed issue, who's the superintendent of Atlanta Public Schools, is that we just need to turn the page. At the end of the day, the board has made a decision to turn the page, to move into the next phase. They met on Friday in an executive session that was open to the public to announce the plans of how they're going to move forward. And so the community is going to be involved. And the thing that I was really happy about is I had a chance to talk to Chairman Estevez, and the thing that he said to me, which I think a lot of you all talked about last week, and that is what about the children, what about the parents? And so one of the things that they did on Friday is they met an open executive session, so it was open to the public, about how they're going to involve the students, the parents, and the community, and civic and philanthropic leaders to make sure that we as a community can pick the best superintendent to move into the next phase. And so I'm not going to really spend too much time on talking about what happened with Superintendent Carr-Starfed. What I really want to focus on is how we move forward. And a lot of folks in the Atlanta community that I've talked to the last 2 weeks share my sentiment, is that, listen, this vote has happened. No matter how it happened, it's done. Let's move forward.
But I also think it's an indication of the putting on the brakes on the charter schools, because one of the main concerns about charter schools is that the money follows the students, but the money that would normally go into the pension fund for teachers doesn't go anywhere. It just doesn't exist anymore. And that is a concern going forward for retiring teachers. If they don't have any money, they can't retire with it.
What about, Janelle, though, the leadership, the vision going forward?
Yeah, that's what concerns me a little bit. It's that when it happened, they did not provide us with a future plan. It's the plan is we're going to hire someone else, which we know you have to do. But the reason, what are you going to be your the reasons that you select certain individuals is what I'm looking forward to hearing more about.
Yeah, and they had a meeting on Friday, and I think that what you'll see from this board is that they're going to come out publicly when they can and follow the legal guidelines. And so I just want for our viewers to know, yes, a decision was made. A board did their job. They're elected to pick and choose who they feel is the right superintendent to lead the school system. They chose to go in a different direction. They did not fire her. They told her, we're not going to renew your contract. So now, as Janelle was pointing out, they've got to come out publicly and talk about the process. So they went into executive session on Friday. They're talking about this open to the public, and I think you'll hear from them very soon.
Well, you may want to turn the page, but let's just keep on the page for a second and think about the future. And how about all of the applicants for a new superintendent? You got a glowing recommendation that you're doing a great job a few months before they don't renew your contract, and you've got a divided board. I still don't hear, now maybe what you're saying is true, maybe they will come out with a plan. I do see, and Alexis is admitting this openly, I see the hidden hand of the teachers union trying to stab her in the back and undermine her. They've been doing it for years. And basically, and the graduation rates have been up, the testing, you don't want to hear the good report that this superintendent did. She did a great job. Why do you get rid of somebody when test scores are up, graduation rates are up? Underperforming schools were closed and consolidated.
Well, graduation rate actually is down 2%. AJC did an article to show that the graduation rate. She disputes that.
Okay. But they're moving on, and so are we.
So can we bury this now? And
for now.
Can we turn the page and not
We're going to turn the page just for now. Smyrna, Atlanta, and Cobb County hired an environmental consulting firm to test the air quality near the Sterigenics facility, and the first test results were released this week. According to the AJC, about 80% of the samples did not show detectable levels of the carcinogen ethylene oxide. But experts say a lot more data is needed. that this is a good baseline, pointing out the samples were collected while plant operations were suspended. Janelle, some of the critics question, why would you even spend the money to do the testing while the plant operations were suspended? Why weren't you doing these samples while the plant was operating at full capacity?
Well, I think it goes back to when you test, it's close to the facility and you're like right there when it's coming out, you're naturally going to get higher levels of everything because it's right there. So I think it is good to test when you are, when the facility is not in operation, to see what's happening in the air. And then, like you said, create a baseline to go back in and do more testing once it's open. But I think this just kind of proves a little bit of my point that I said a few episodes back, that we just have to be careful not to over politicize certain things. So I'm watching it and hoping that we get positive results going forward.
Theron?
Well, I think, listen, they are to be commended for doing this testing, but this is the type of testing they should have been doing from the beginning. And now counties and cities are sort of forced to do their own testings, and I think that, I'm going to be very careful about what I say in this process. But I agree with Janelle. I think that while it was bad about how they did not sort of self-report as much as they could have done, and then the governor's office stepped in and tried to work with them, now we got to figure out how do we continue this sort of open process. But the bottom line is this, is that if people are breathing air that is polluted with any chemicals, that is something that all of us as Georgians should be very, very concerned about. So I think these testings should continue, and we need to make sure we stay on top of it.
Well, I think that's a good point, and I would just make a quick footnote, and that is I had to roll my eyes when I read in the paper that, gee, we couldn't get a good sample because they'd shut down the thing. That's what I was trying to tell Stacey Evans when she was a guest on here, and State Senator Jen Jordan shut it down. Wait a minute, we have to test to get good samples.
That's a good point.
Well,
Stacey's not here to defend herself.
well, I'd like to see the EPD step up as well. But coming up, winners and losers when it comes to 16 miles of new toll lanes on Georgia 400. That's next.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
16 miles of new toll lanes, and surprise, surprise, not everyone is happy. Looks like city leaders in Sandy Springs and Roswell are pleased with the DOT, but Alpharetta and Fulton County Schools, not so much. There, time is running out, and the DOT says if you're looking for major changes like flyover bridges to the plan, you're just not going to get them.
Well, there's a history with 400 and these toll lanes. I know Alexis has talked about it. I mean, I can't remember who the governor was at the time and the mayor, but 400 and how you sort of pay for, and then they took away the toll lanes. Now it's a conversation about bringing them back. I'm kind of with the cities on this. I'm kind of torn. I mean, you see some of the cities saying, hey, great idea, let's move forward. Some are not. But I think what it boils down to is that we got to make sure that GDOT continues to do what it's been doing. I've been very pleased to know that the commissioner has been very open about this. Yes, it is a funding issue. How do we pay for it? There are some residents that are not happy about it. And so in the full era of transparency, I think that they're being open to hearing the criticism. But at the end of the day, if it's going to reduce traffic and help the transit plan that we know we desperately need in this region, then I'm open to learning how it could be paid for and how it could be beneficial to us all.
And Alexis, this could be one of the biggest projects we'll see on 400 for decades.
Yeah, and since it was started in the first place, and I do remember what a difference it made to have that put in, and what a controversy it was about putting it in also. So it's no different right now, but the expansion seems to be warranted and has been for some time. So somebody's got to pay for it.
All right, well, I want to get to this next segment because, Janelle, the so-called Walkaway Movement came to Atlanta this week, and you were there, so Theron really wanted to talk about this. So can you explain what it is?
Yeah, so the Walkaway Movement is a movement that was started by Brandon Schrock, who is a part of the LGBTQ community. He was a Democrat who voted for Hillary Clinton, and he was one of the ones that were devastated when she lost. However, over time, he saw that there was a lot of strategies behind the Democratic push to get voters involved that he was just not for, and it led him to the Republican Party. However, the Walkaway Movement is about leaving the Democratic Party, or just individuals who are part of the party, mainly because of, that's what parents have told them to do, or they just, feel like this is just what's right as a minority, and leaving that and moving out of that, either moving in a space of an independent or to the conservative side. He does not push and he'll say this numerous times, he does not push for people to become Republican. He just pushes for you to either become an independent or at least know why you are supporting whichever party you're supporting.
And there she says it was sold out, that it was a very good panel. So what are your thoughts on this?
So she left out a very important component for our viewers, is that this is a gentleman, Mr. Schrock, I'm not sure I say his name right, who basically has Russian ties. So this is not this has been reported. So what I really would hope that my good friend and my fellow panelist Janelle would say is that while yes, this may have been well attended, this is a Russian bot. He's a part of the.
Are we serious?
No,
saying this right now?
No, I'm serious. It's been set up Russian profiles to try to basically go and get African Americans to not vote Democratic.
He's getting paranoid.
First of all,
hold on, I didn't cut you off.
They're under every bed.
So then the second thing that was very disturbing to me about this is that if Republicans want to recruit more African Americans to their party, how about you start electing more of them? We only have one African American Republican in the Senate, and we only have one African American Republican in the House who's not running again. And so while they're trying to pull this coup to tell African Americans that, hey, you should come and join our party.
Another voter suppression tactic.
Oh my goodness.
They should focus on, like I said in the show, how about getting people to apply to fulfill the seat of vacated Johnny Osmond. So I just wanted to call
I'm sorry, I have to before the segment's over.
All right,
because I have to get this in because you put a huge accusation out there. So Shelley Winter is a good friend of mine, and he was really instrumental in getting the panelists together for the Georgian, and he's no Russian bot. So I assure you that this was not a scheme or a plan, and neither is the movement. Let's just be clear. The Democratic Party has used identity politics for a number of years in order to isolate groups in order to supporting their party. So all that we're saying is do your research and know exactly where you're voting. If you still choose to vote as a Democrat, fine, but just know that you are voting because you understand that this is a party that's benefiting you and your community. That's all we talked about. There were Democrats in the audience as well. So I refute all of that, the whole Russian thing. Anytime there's anything related to Republicans, it's Russia.
I have to laugh at this.
Phil, you weigh in on
the
this.
Russians are everywhere.
I know.
You got shot down.
And they are.
You got shot. You used to love Russia. The liberals used to love Russia. When we were in the Cold War. And now they're the big enemy. How does that work?
Anytime Republicans do anything, it's the Russians.
But
it's ridiculous.
Where's your documentation? There's no documentation for that
I'm going to
whatsoever.
allow Farron to get the last word.
I need one.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Alexis.
What I just want to say is that being a Republican is one thing, being a Trumpkin is another. And Donald Trump has hijacked the Republican Party. And I think y'all need to get it back.
Like the socialists have hijacked the Democrat Party?
That
happened.
I know, it just happened.
So I think this is
Darren, you got 20 seconds.
This is the thing I would say is that my problem with this whole movement, which Janelle participated in, is that it does have Russian ties, and that if you want to try to appeal to African American community, then Republicans needs to start putting forth policies.
Said that. You've already said that.
They said that Facebook has Russian ties. Should we all get off Facebook?
There's no documentation.
Okay, exactly.
No documentation.
Coming up, everyone, we will have winners and losers. Stay tuned. Y'all keep talking. It's gonna happen.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
I just want to go first and congratulate Janelle Jones on your upcoming nuptials Saturday.
Thank you. I appreciate
Saturday,
it.
This Saturday. Yes.
Okay.
We tape Friday. We're talking tomorrow. So when our viewers are watching, you will be a married woman.
I sure will.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Farron, go
All right.
ahead.
I want to definitely share Alexis what she said last week about Juanita Abernathy. She's going to be missed. This is a woman who, up until the day that she passed away, was fighting for social justice and equal rights in this state, and was a lieutenant along with Coretta Scott King and with her late husband, Ralph David Abernathy. And so I definitely want to give her a salute. Also, I want to give a big shout out to State Representative Calvin Samari, who is the longest serving member in the delegation here in Georgia. Was elected at the age of 26, and AFLAC gave him the Lifetime Achievement Award during the Congressional Black Caucus, and all his friends from Synovus and other came up to celebrate him. And then lastly, I also want to stay in Columbus. I want to give a shout out to Raymond Chambliss, a Columbus resident who's gathering supplies and food to send over to the victims in from the Dorian hurricane in the Bahamas. I know you said something about them once before, and I just encourage all our viewers to chip in and to help these hurricane victims.
All right, Phil.
Well, I want to also make Calvin Schmeiry a winner too. He's a Democrat that I like. He's no socialist, and he is the dean of the House, and so I always like Democrats that aren't socialists. I got a loser who was Gwinnett Judge Catherine Schrader. She got indicted the other day on 3 felony counts of criminal trespass. Good grief. The accusation is that she gave 3 men access to the county computer system. She's got a feud with the DA, Danny Porter. Not good. And I'm wearing my Georgia pin today. Theron, I know you back me up on this especially, but before we're taping before the game, but I'm predicting, I'm looking in the crystal ball, Georgia will be a winner over Notre Dame.
Yes, Janelle.
Well, I'm going to stay in the vein of sports as well. I'm going to make my winner the Atlanta Braves, who pulled out a win yesterday, and hopefully they clinch the division on this game tonight. And I also would like to make Brandon Schrock a winner in the Walkaway Movement, because I do support anyone who is creating an environment for individuals to educate themselves in the party system.
All right, Alexis, they're giving me about 20
all right.
seconds.
I'm going to celebrate Christopher Bridges, also known as Ludacris. His foundation has raised over $100,000 in donations to the folks recovering from Dorian in the Bahamas. Also, there's a runoff for the Fulton County Commission that pits Gordon Joyner, former commissioner, against Joe Karn, former city council member of College Park. So that people need to look out for that, along with the school board runoff.
All right, we'll be watching those. Thank you so much. And thank you all so much for watching. Of course, we'll be remembering the legendary journalist Cokie Roberts. So thank you all so much. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.